Hello everybody, welcome back. Today's game was requested by a viewer of one of my previous videos, and the game was between Mattison Hermanis and Aron Nimzowitsch, so let's get right into it. The game started off d4, knight to f6, c4, e6, knight c3, and bishop b4. Of course, Nimzowitsch goes for the Nimzo Indian. This opening was named after him, so it kind of makes sense that he would play it. Knight f3 and bishop takes c3. A little bit strange. Normally you would wait until white plays the move a3, or until you're absolutely forced to give up the bishop, because you would kind of gain more time because a3 is not really a useful move for white. So instead, the moves c5 and b6 are the two most common responses, but bishop takes c3 was played instead, b takes c3, and the move d6 was played. Queen c2 and queen to e7. So now, if you're wondering why white can't play e4, he can, but the thing is, black has the response e5, which he prepared with the move queen to e7. Now with this move, it kind of shuts down the center, and you guys already know what happens when you shut down the center and you have a bishop pair. It's not very good. I featured this concept in one of my previous videos. So instead, white opts to play bishop to a3, and now white is threatening to play the move e4. Because e5 no longer works. You can't shut down the center because d takes e5, and this d pawn is pinned against the queen. So what's the most logical move in this position? The answer is c5. You shut the diagonal down, and e4 no longer works because you can play e5 again. So instead, g3 was played, and b6. So both sides fianchetto, and with these moves, black further tightens his grip on e4, which is what white really wants to play and control the center. Castles, castles, knight to h4, bishop takes g2, and king takes g2. Now here's the critical position. I would like you to pause the video here and find a good plan for black. And ask yourself this question: what are the weaknesses in white's position? So let's answer that question right now. Once you kind of look at the position, you can kind of see white has several things not going for him. First of all, this knight is on the rim. Knights on the rim are grim. We all heard that saying before. This bishop's biting granite against black's pawn chain, but those really can't be attacked that easily because they're pieces and they're kind of moving around. The easiest things to attack are pawns, because pawns aren't very mobile and they have to be protected by white's pieces. So once you start looking at all the pawns, you can see that the c4 pawn is very weak. It cannot easily be defended by white's pieces, mainly because this c-file is kind of shut down by this c3 pawn that's inflicted on white's position. So once you realize that c4 is the key square, the move becomes very easy to find, and that's queen b7. So queen b7 was played, and after king g1, a move is only good if you have a good follow-up to the opponent's response. So what is the correct follow-up here? Remember, c4 is the square we're eyeing. Queen a6. So queen a6 does two things: attacks this and attacks c4. Queen b3 is practically forced. And now, how do you apply more pressure onto that pawn? Remember, that's our key weakness. c4 is our key weakness. Knight c6. So with this move, black basically wants to play knight a5. Rook f d1, knight a5. And now the only move in white's position is queen b5, not to lose the pawn and instantly lose the game. And queen takes b5, c takes b5, and a great move, knight c4. So although there isn't a pawn on that square anymore, the problem is white has no pawns that can attack that square. So it becomes an outpost and becomes extremely strong for black's knight to occupy that. So bishop c1, and now we ask ourselves another question. What pieces aren't in play for black? The answer is obvious. The rooks. These two rooks. They're not in play. And where do rooks best operate on? Open files. So how do you open up files? a6. So this opens up the a file, and after the exchange, we have a clear open file for black's rook and a nice weak pawn on a2 to attack. So now white's position is basically crumbling, and d takes c5 was played, b takes c5, knight g2, and we have these two targets here. These two pawns are weak, so knight to d5 was played, attacking the c3 pawn. After rook d3, rook f a8 was played, attacking the a pawn. Now, the a pawn is going to be lost. There's no way to defend it, and e4 is played. And knight e5 finishes the game, because now on knight e5, rook d1 is the only square for the rook to go. If you go rook d2, the problem is knight f3 wins the rook, so rook d1 is forced, and you can take the pawn on c3. Now rook f1, and you can just take the pawn on a2. Black's 2 pawns up, it's an easy win, and so on knight e5, white resigned. I hope this game demonstrates to you how effective it can be to constantly attack your opponent's weaknesses until their position crumbles. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you all next time. Goodbye.